years ago, you couldn't get enough money on Peter Brock bidding the fleet of Fond Hooroo at Wanneroo, and that's exactly what he did. Today, though, a new era has dawned. The once dominant Ford Sierras are now feeling the pinch against the high-tech Nissan GTRs of Jim Richards and Mark Skaife, who topped the leaderboard after 2 rounds of the Shell National Series. This afternoon, 7 Sport greets you from Perth's Wanneroo Park, an undulating 2.41 kilometre layout built inside one super sand trap. It might need a change of tactics to prevent a Nissan hat-trick in the west, but the teams are working on it as they prepare for round 3 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship.
Good afternoon, Australia. I'm Mike Raymond. Welcome to Perth's Wanneroo Park Raceway and round 3 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship, a series that has been dominated totally by Jim Richards, Mark Skaife and Nissan in particular. Well, to you Holden, Ford and BMW devotees hoping for something just a little different here today, your prayers have been answered. 4 times Australian champ Dick Johnson has pole position in the Ford Cosworth, and sharing the front row with him, Holden's Win Percy. What a race it promises to be. And to take a look at the field, it's good afternoon to Neil Crompton.
Mike, qualifying yesterday was sensational. Dick Johnson with pole of 59.1, alongside him, as you said, with the Holden Win Percy. From 3, reigning champ and series leader Jim Richards. From 4, 25, Tony Longhurst, the BMW. 4 different brands in the top 4. From 5, Glenn Seton. From position 6, Mark Skaife, the second of the Nissans. From 7, Colin Bond. From 8, it's Peter Brock. From 9, we have Alan Jones. From 10, John Bow, with some problems in the warm-up. And rounding out the 11, Larry Perkins. This field is quality, not quantity. After the break, we'll have round 3 of the Shell Series from Wanneroo Park.
Back here at Wanneroo Park Raceway, the field coming down off Motorcraft Hill before the start. Dick Johnson, of course, with pole position, and Win Percy to start on the outside. Not the happiest of days for Nissan yesterday. Some violent understeer problems. Here was Jimmy Richards in the morning session going straight ahead. Tried to pull the car up. Then in the later session in the afternoon, Mark Skaife, talk about understeer and oversteer, Mark took it down to the sand trap in the bottom turn. Then this morning, of course, John Bow blowing a turbo. A lot of work for the Dick Johnson team with their second car. It will start from the back of the field today. Dick off the front and John Bow starting off the back line in company with Larry Perkins. But boy, really did cause a bushfire alert. We're ready to go racing round number 3 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship from Wanneroo Park in Western Australia. A beautiful day here, not a cloud in the sky, and a huge crowd ready for what promises to be quite a race. 10 seconds away from the start. Ford's Dick Johnson, Holden's Win Percy are about to go at it. And they're racing. Johnson, a beautiful start, and Mark Skaife down the outside in the Nissan. Jimmy Richards trying to get up there. Tony Longhurst wasn't on the inside, but it'll be Johnson into the first turn, and maybe that's Skaife up into second. Very, very tight running in the turn as they work their way up towards the S's, and it's Johnson. Mark Skaife up smartly, Win Percy, then Jimmy Richards. So Johnson's plan in this race is to get away from the pack and to do a pit stop on lap number 20. Running on softer compound tyres, he hopes he can spring a surprise on the Sierra set. And again, it's good afternoon to Neil Crompton, to Mark Osler.
Johnson here sprinting away, car 17. This is the plan, but look at Skaife, a fantastic start off the second row of the grid. Launched into second position. He's going to push Johnson hard, but look at Percy. Bogged down a little bit on the start as well, but he's right up there in third as they head down to the pit straight.
Back line of placings is the one that's going to be interesting. Look at the BMW on the inside. Outstanding brake performance as Tony Longhurst attacked Glenn Seton. That's Alan Jones. Johnson the leader at the end of lap 1 from Skaife. Win Percy, the aggressor, in third position. And in fourth place, reigning champ and series leader Jim Richards.
That was an interesting little shot there, Richards and Win Percy. Percy won that braking duel. Now moves up to be in company with Mark Skaife. Tony Longhurst doing a fabulous job in the Benson and Hedges BMW, and Johnson starting to open a break as they go over the top of the hill and head down towards Kolb Corner. Johnson's plan to try and open about 8 to 10 seconds over the pack and come in for a set of soft compound tyres at the halfway mark, or just before it. To Kolb Corner. We take our Nissan race cam with Jimmy Richards heading up towards Motorcraft Hill. He sits in behind Win Percy. And we look to see whether or not Mark Skaife can make any ground at all on Dick Johnson. Not at this stage of the race. Glenn Seton moving up too in the Peter Jackson entry, right behind Tony Longhurst. This is interesting stuff, and how close is it for second, third, fourth and fifth? As a problem for Longhurst as Seton pulls out of the draft and runs straight down the outside, and Alan Jones, and also I think it was Longhurst trying to get a position back again. I think he may have just missed a gear, Tony Longhurst.
Yes, and he got Glenn Seton under brakes at the end of pit straight that time. Mark Skaife, joint fastest with Win Percy in the warm-up this morning at 59.87. Alan Jones third quickest. The BMWs are the cars that are working beautifully here this weekend. Seton under attack here from Peter Brock. And as we said at the outset, certainly not a big field, but the quality of the field outstanding, and the cars are so closely matched.
It's going to be interesting to watch the progress of Peter Brock in this race. He said in the press conference yesterday he was happy with his race setup, and here he's running quite comfortably behind Seton in the opening laps.
There's Seton coming down again, keeping the pressure on Tony Longhurst. There's Peter Brock, the 05 MOBIL VN Commodore. We take Jim Richards' Nissan race cam, and we've also got a race cam riding with Peter Brock here today, so we believe we've got the front half of the field covered fairly well. Here Brocky doing a bit of heavy breathing there as he works the Commodore fairly hard, trying to stay in touch here with Glenn Seton. Johnson still opening that gap just a little. Mark Skaife unable to run away from the clutches of Win Percy. Then Jim Richards, then Tony Longhurst, and of course Glenn Seton. And here's Johnson, car number 17, the Shell Sierra. Coming down to Kolb Corner, now the run towards Motorcraft Hill. A little on the taily side on the exit there. So his race plan's not doing too bad now.
No, it looks reasonable at the moment, but he does have to open up a very big gap, much bigger than the 3.4 seconds that he's got over Mark Skaife at the moment, because Dick will dump the best part of 30 to 40 odd seconds in the process of the stop. That's not the stop itself, but remember you've got to get in and out of the pits and not muff the pit stop. He's going to put 4 wheels and tyres on, and he's running on the compound Dunlop that the team chose for Sandown and Simmons Plains. But that tyre is not strong enough to stand up to the punishment here for 44 odd laps, and they're going to change on lap 20, as you pointed out. This battle for second's interesting with Skaife, Win Percy and Jimmy Richards. The Nissan's certainly not comfortable this weekend like they've been in the opening 2 rounds, and Percy indeed yesterday in qualifying was very strong. There were 2 non-qualifying sessions yesterday morning and in the early afternoon, and number 16 Holden Racing Team Commodore was the quickest of the bunch, and then in qualifying it was such a fine gap between Dick Johnson and Win Percy that certainly it held a lot of interest with the Ford and Holden fans.
You notice that Skaife just able to get away just a little heading up the hill, but Percy is back. He's very strong under brakes, Win Percy. Gee whiz, he just closes up here. There's the gap. Johnson, Mark Skaife in the number 2 Nissan, right behind him Win Percy. Then Jimmy Richards. John Bow making a run through the field as well. He's got a lot of work to do after blowing that turbo this morning. He's given them a big start.
They've had nothing but engine drama all weekend with the number 18 Shell car. They went through 2 engines yesterday. Then the turbo that you talked about earlier, we saw shots of that a few moments ago.
Coming down to Kolb Corner again, Win Percy, the Holden Racing Team VN Commodore. Here's the ham and the sandwich. It's a GTR sandwich at this stage. Then Tony Longhurst, who is able to stay with them. Glenn Seton has just dropped off the pace just a touch. It's probably out of a couple of seconds, Johnson over the field at the moment, and Percy again comes charging back. There's Peter Brock, Colin Bond in the Caltech CXT Ford Sierra.
Colin finished a very strong 3rd here last year, and he's gone for pretty much the same race strategy this year, to go out on a hard compound of tyre and circulate consistently and wear the others down.
It's amazing how things change over the last couple of years. I think 2 years ago everyone was bagging Ford Sierras as one class category. The Nissans have come along this year, and the knockers are already saying that they've done for touring car racing what Laurie Connell's done for the free lunch. You can't win. And today, of course, or yesterday in qualifying with the Nissans off the pace, everyone reckoned that they were laying down to make the racing look close. Far from it. You'd seen the way that Skaife and Jim Richards were attacking yesterday, going off the circuit. They are absolutely fair dinkum, but Freddie Gibson has made this circuit. I think perhaps Wanneroo Park and certainly at Lakeside and Winton, circuits where the Nissan is really going to feel the pinch.
61-second lap time for Johnson on the previous lap, so the pace drifting away pretty quickly, and he's still got only just over 3 seconds gap between his Ford Sierra and this man, Mark Skaife, and the tightly bunched Win Percy and Jim Richards. And frankly, Dick's strategy is not going to work unless he can continue to make ground at the rate of about a second a lap. He's just got to keep on going, and obviously that's not working at the moment. See, the other problem with running the softer tyre on this very abrasive and sandy surface is that if you do overheat the thing and start to end up with a more dramatic wear rate than your data showed you earlier in the week, the thing just lays down and dies, and you don't even make it to the 20-lap mark in anything like the shape that you thought you were going to. So I'm sure Neil Lowe will be well aware of those dramas at the moment, the Shell team crew chief, and they'll be frantically working away on their calculators to see whether the strategy will pay.
It's interesting to watch Win Percy and the HRT Commodore here, sitting quite comfortably in the Nissan sandwich. The HRT this weekend, of course, running their first full-spec Group A V8 engine, and they're very happy with the performance of the car.
Actually, he had an engine failure as well, so it's been not the best of weekends.
That's right, they lost that engine on Friday, and so they're running the old, when I say the old configuration, the configuration that was so successful for them last year, but they went through something like 5 engines and 3,000 litres of fuel on the dyno, finding all this extra horsepower in the weeks leading up to this race, only to lose the engine on Friday.
It's Tony Longhurst of Benson and Hedges BMW M3. Expect the little Bimmer to get a little closer to this outfit, probably in the last 10 or 15 laps of the race. Colin Bond to 7th. He's already passed Peter Brock, so could we have another day where Bond comes off towards the back of the field and is able to pick up a major spot?
The gap from first to second is now diminishing. It's 2.6 seconds, so I think by the time Dick has to make this pit stop, it'll all be a wasted exercise. The other thing that maybe we haven't thought of is that the pit stop yarn is just that. And maybe, in fact, he's chosen a tyre that he can run the distance with, but time will tell. We've been running now for just coming up to about 10 minutes, and this is the scrap between Larry Perkins, John Bowe and Alan Jones. And Alan's all over the back of these two cars in the places where the BMW is strong, but they skip away where horsepower comes into play.
I believe for the next round of the Touring Car Championship, which is a fortnight from today, first round of the AMSCAR Series in Sydney next weekend at Wanneroo Park. Then, of course, we go to Lakeside in Queensland at the end of the month on the 28th, where I believe Tony Longhurst has been putting in some absolutely sizzling laps in practice over the last couple of weeks.
Fred Gibson said this morning that you know, they're very worried. They've been to Lakeside and tested, and the BMW is well and truly their match there. And I still think that we're going to see something pretty exciting from that little yellow car in the background there in the coming 40 minutes.
As he's getting a little closer to the tail of Jim Richards. Richards now sitting and making life fairly uncomfortable for one Win Percy as we take Nissan race car coming up through the S's, heading to the left-hander at the Shell sweeper. Johnson still, yeah, the gap looks about the same visually. There's not too much in it. But I think Jim is getting all over the tail now of Win Percy. May even dive to the inside here on the entrance to Cold Corner. Fairly close and just finds a little opening. Not much in it, let me tell you, but a beautiful pass there from Jimmy Richards.
Look at Longhurst.
And Longhurst is in this. And he comes ranging up on the outside. The V8's got a bit too much grunt to the top of the hill.
Gee, this is a pretty
Watch
good
under brakes.
Here he comes. Darts straight down the inside.
Win was able to cover the ground at the very last minute, but the BMW's braking performance is outstanding. Longhurst actually got past the Commodore in that right-hander and was outgunned down the straight predictably, but boy, if he can get some space under brakes, he'll make himself very unpopular with the black and white crew. But such is the strength of the BMW that just seems to be able to lap consistently. We've mentioned it in the first couple of rounds of the Shell Series this year, and when we do get to Winton and Wanneroo Park, boy, it'll be a car to watch. So the order at the moment is still Dick Johnson from Mark Skaife, Jim Richards in third, then we've got Win Percy here, and Behind him, Tony Longhurst really charging in car 25. The gap is still 2.9 seconds from Johnson to Skaife, and the Nissan's still looking pretty sharp.
Longhurst here monstering the back of Win Percy's Commodore. It's just an indication. This is supposed to be a power circuit. It's an indication of the superb handling, brakes and lap consistency of these little yellow cars.
They go through the Nissan combination of Mark Skaife and Jimmy Richards, just moving a little closer to the tail of Dick Johnson's number 17 Shell Sierra, as they go through the right-hander and work their way up through the series of S's. Let's check out how they're running on the racetrack on our Shell race score. Race leader Dick Johnson in the Shell Sierra. Mark Skaife runs second in the number 2 Nissan GTR. Third is Jimmy Richards, the national champion. Fourth, Win Percy. And rounding out the 5 and about to hound them all the way to the checkered flag is Tony Longhurst. Welcome back to Wanneroo Park. 15 laps completed in round 3 hostilities. And there is our race leader, Dick Johnson. The gap appeared to open up there to about 3.5, 4 seconds, a lap or so back. Mark Skaife and Jimmy Richards run nose to tail, second and third in the race as Johnson exits that turn and works his way up towards the S's.
Yeah, I had it out to 4 seconds there at one stage, and I'll just put the clock on it again. Varies a little bit depending on the lap. We've got 3.5 seconds between them at the moment. Dick Johnson, you're working pretty hard at the wheel there as we take Dunlop race cam. Is the strategy going to work?
Oh, God only knows, mate. It's got more pops than a lollipop shop at the moment, but it's just a gamble, Mike. We're just going to see how it pans out in the end.
What did you hope to have over the two Nissans when you pull in for your pit stop?
Well, the way this thing's going at the moment, I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah. You have got to do a pit stop, Dick. There's no way you can go all the way.
No, mate, it's just sort of, you do this to me, Mike. I don't know how you do it.
I haven't.
Yeah, you have.
Oh, mate, I've given you the kiss of death again. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's all right. It's just the way it is. Just the way it is, pal.
Any idea of the problem?
Yeah, I think it's sort of having a problem with the engine, I think.
Let you go, Dick. Thanks for that. Well, you can see the advantage of race cam. No sooner talking to Dick Johnson and the engine's gone pop. Dick has gone to the pits. His chance of winning round 3 today have gone completely, and we now have a Nissan 1-2 set up with, of course, Win Percy chasing hard in the Holden number 16 VN Commodore. And we all suggest that maybe Tony Longhurst could be the sleeper in this race a little later on as he wears them down.
Well, certainly Dick was losing a little ground there in that last couple of laps. What a disastrous weekend for the Shell team with engines for some reason. They've obviously changed their spec or setup in some way, shape or form from what has been an extremely reliable arrangement. So now we have a battle between cars 1 and 2. Can Jim Richards get past his junior teammate Mark Skaife? Johnson rejoins and will have dropped a lap plus on the field.
Now, there's wretched luck for Johnson, who thought he had a good strategy. A little touch of air to the centre, a quick dash to the pits, a la Alan Moffat in '84. He's back on the circuit again. But that race has gone for Dick. And John Bow in the number 18 car starting at the tail of the field hasn't been able to make up too much in the way of ground.
I think he's got a problem too. There's a lot of mist coming out from behind the number 18 car, so it wouldn't surprise me to see that car heading to the pit shortly. 1.8 seconds from Mark Skaife, the leader, to Win Percy, who's got Tony Longhurst right on his hammer. So we've still got 4 cars, 3 different brands in this top 4, and a race which is far from concluded. Should be an interesting conclusion with the fact that the BM will continue to lap consistently. The Commodore's not losing any ground to the Nissans, and I think we're going to have a real fight between the 2 Nissan teammates because there are no team orders in this organisation. You do the best you can, boys. The fact that they're red, white and blue is irrelevant. They're good mates off the track. Skaife does a heap of the development work on these cars. He knows them inside out. He's got the speed of his team leader and reigning champ Jimmy Richards, and so the order from Fred is do your best. Just down at the end of the pit straight that time, Jim had a very big look up the inside of Mark Skaife. Dare I say the fact that he had the hole closed off pretty quickly, and Dick Johnson now coming back into the pit, so he has a major problem.
It's been a surprising weekend for the Shell cars, as Neil said, but getting back to the lead here, it's also important to remember these 2 Nissans are 2 big, heavy cars, and it's an abrasive circuit, so come the second half of the race, you may see their lap times drop away, and the BMW comes on strong. Well, time will tell. They've completed 20 laps of racing, and we've been going now for just on 20 minutes. Lap time still lurking at around the 61 odd mark, and Mark Skaife, the leader, jumped away by a couple of lengths now over Jim Richards, who was, as Mike suggested, very close at the end of that previous lap, and then this scrap 3rd, 4th, very tight between Win Percy and Tony Longhurst. So at the moment we're still watching what we've seen all year, and that's a couple of Nissans performing very well. I understand that Jim Richards is with us on race cam. Richo, things look pretty good at the moment. We'll try again. Jim Richards at the wheel of car number 1, the series leader, chasing Mark Skaife. Things look pretty good for you at the moment, mate.
Well, it seems to have fallen that way, Neil, yeah, but, you know, the race is not even half over yet, so we'll see what happens.
How's it performing in the tyre area, Jim? Are they still hanging in there?
Tyres are great. Everything's going fine. I'm just keeping an eye on who's behind us.
Well, you got Win Percy behind you and Tony Longhurst closing a bit on him, Jim.
I think I can see that, buddy.
Thought you might have been aware of that.
Jim, you were a little bit unhappy with the balance for the last couple of days. It wasn't quite perfect, but the car looks to be working pretty reasonably at the moment.
Yes, no, that's right. It's
falling, you know, I suppose the chips are falling our way. We didn't have a very good practice, but everything's going okay at the moment.
All right, let you get back to it. Don't want to lose any precious time.
Thank you.
Jimmy Richards, courtesy of our Nissan race cam, as we follow Jim down to the right-hander, and John Bow is also in. Car number 18. A Richard weekend for John after the problems yesterday, and then of course blowing a turbo this morning. He has been lagging behind the field rather sadly since this race started. Fires it up. He gets back into the fray again. So with Johnson's number 17 car having problems early in the race, they have a lot of work to do before the next round of the championship, a fortnight from today, at least at home base at Lakeside, where they do all of their testing.
I think the fastest man in the race so far, incidentally, has been Win Percy at a time of 60.41. Just 1/100th of a second quicker than Mark Skaife and Dick Johnson, who share the same time. So that's an interesting indication again of the proximity of three brands of cars on this track. There's Peter Brock, and he's lurking in 7th at the moment, car 05. A little bit better performance from the MOBIL cars this weekend, but there's still some time to find with these cars. They've been having a lot of strife just getting the balance to their liking.
They've just passed the halfway mark in the race. 45-minuter at Wanneroo Park, as it is each year. The two Nissans nose to tail as they come across the start-finishing line, and probably a gap of 3 or 4 car lengths back to Win Percy, and Tony Longhurst probably a car length back behind him. Here's Peter Brock, who we've been following, the 05 car, and right behind him Alan Jones in the second of the B&H BMW M3s. So if things are a little uncomfortable in the cockpit of the 05 car, Jones is going to make it even worse for him.
It's 2 seconds from Mark Skaife to Win Percy at the moment. That covers the first 3, and still Longhurst right on Win Percy's tail.
Once again, they go through the shell sweeper, left-hander. They run up the hill. And here comes Jones down on the inside, but the VN Commodore got away from him just for a second or so, but then he went through on the inside to the approach to Kolb Corner. Waiting for Peter Brock to come over the top. There's Colin Bond, the Caltech CXT car. And this dice continues between Brocky and Alan Jones. Jones going down on the inside to take that spot away.
Well, Peter's giving Alan heaps of room there. He probably realises that he's fighting a losing battle under brakes, but he's got what it takes in a straight line. Peter Brock, I think, is with us on race cam. Peter, this is a familiar sight.
Yes, unfortunately, my brakes are getting very spongy, and the left-hand rear tyre said see you later at the moment, so I'm just sort of in cruise mode. So Jonesy can virtually do what he likes at the moment. I notice he's doing 61 point something, or it's on laps to 62 point something, so yeah, feels very dodgy.
Peter, there's been real difficulty trying to get this car to balance the way you want it to. You're making any progress?
I sort of want to Bondy a bit here, but I can't pressure him enough at the moment because, for instance, where I'm right now, if I accelerate too hard, the left-hand rear just wants to skate out. So, hello?
That doesn't sound too
Hello,
good.
we've just lost some power.
We'll let you go back to work. Well, that's Peter was looking across at the switching in the middle of the car, and where he's got a couple of alternative fuel pumps, and the thing just started to snatch and carry on. It's making a dreadful noise as it goes past our commentary point. So the first reaction for him to do then was to shut down the existing pump and switch another on. But maybe he's got more problems than just fuel pumps.
I'm glad we haven't got 10 race cams today. I think we've put the muckers on just about everyone so far that we talked to. There's Brocky's car sound. Oh, puff of smoke coming out of the pipe as we pick up on our leading Nissan GTRs, Mark Skaife and car number 1, Jimmy Richards. They come across the start-finishing line. The gap back to Win Percy, about the same, and I think perhaps Tony Longhurst just a little bit closer to Win Percy that time. To the right-hander. I guess this is the site that everyone expected at Wanneroo, but there were a few other challenges yesterday, a few other players in the game. Certainly the qualifying efforts of both Dick Johnson and Win Percy throwing the equation out, for a while anyway. Motor problems besetting Johnson, who went back in, had to come back into the pits.
Brock to the pits, and very unusual to have an engine problem with these cars, but weirder things have happened. This is the battle for third and fourth, and Win is 3.1 seconds behind the Nissans at the moment.
So if anything, they're still holding their pace, probably opening it just marginally to Percy.
Should probably give everybody an idea of who's where. We've got Mark Skaife leading from Jim Richards. In third place, it's Win Percy. In fourth place, it's Tony Longhurst. Then Glenn Seton in fifth. Colin Bond is sixth. Peter Brock was seventh, now in the pits, and so that moves Alan Jones up. Then Larry Perkins, John Bow, Dick Johnson, and Peter Brock in the pits and yet to emerge.
Win Percy, car number 16. Holden Racing Team VN Commodore. Coming down to the right-hander at Kolb Corner. So the positions unchanged as we check them out for you on our Shell race score. The Nissan dynamic duo of Mark Skaife and Jim Richards looking set for another 1-2 here at Wanneroo this afternoon. Win Percy for Holden runs in third. Longhurst still fairly close to the tail of Percy's fourth, and rounding out the five, Glenn Seton in the Peter Jackson Sierra. Will return to Wanneroo in just a moment. 31 laps completed, round 3 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship at Wanneroo Park. Positions unchanged. Mark Skaife continues to lead from Jimmy Richards. The real battle of the race is Tony Longhurst, 4th, challenging Wyn Percy for 3rd. And there are a couple of places on the circuit where Longhurst can get the nose of the BMW down the side of Wyn Percy's car, only to be out accelerated as soon as they hit the straight. It's been a fascinating dice the last couple of laps.
Yes, it sure has, Mike, and interestingly the gap from the two Nissans to these cars is now 7 seconds, and just in that last break it really stretched, so the Nissans are still maintaining their consistency, and we've still got Jim Richards hard on the heels of Mark, but boy, Wyn is fighting one heck of a battle here at the moment with Tony, who's monstering him left, right and centre in all the spots that you'd predict the BMW would be good, and then this happens, the 520 odd horsepower of the Holden leap away from the BMW in a straight line, and then back comes Tony again under brakes, and boy doesn't he push it hard. Oh, and Percy runs wide.
How quick was that? Down the inside, look for Percy to come fighting back, but he won't get Longhurst before the next right-hander. That now pole vaults Tony Longhurst up into 3rd behind the two Nissans, Skaife and Jimmy Richards. And that happened ever so quickly. Sorry to interrupt, Mike. I got a feeling that Wyn's got a flat tyre or something of that nature. The car just looked very unstable when we could see that shot in the cockpit a few minutes ago, and wouldn't surprise me at all if Wyn had to make a pit stop. So I understand Mark Oastler's in the pits. Mark, what have you got for us?
Standing with me is Dick Johnson, and Dick, we seem to put the race cam kiss of death on you again. What happened to the 17 car?
Well, everything was going to plan there early in the race, and then the old engine's a bit tired. It really should have been changed before this race, but we had a couple of problems earlier in the week and we ran out of engine, so it ran a bit too long, and towards the end it just started getting worse and worse, and rather than just throw away $30,000, I thought I'd stop.
Your strategy with the soft tyres and getting a lead at the beginning, were you surprised it wasn't as successful as you thought?
Actually, I think it was working reasonably well, to be quite honest, because the end of the race is still to come, and a lot of the cars are starting to feel the effects of badly worn tyres now, and I think I would have been able to truck on till the end.
Okay, Dick Johnson, thanks very much. Not a good weekend for the Shell team, Mike.
No, certainly not, Mark, and we've noticed Wyn Percy come in. You might like to check that situation out. We thought he may have had a deflating tyre on the Holden in the last lap, and that's the reason he's in. But you can check that out for us as we follow the two Nissan GTRs.
It was very much a guesstimation on my part. You shouldn't speculate, I suppose, but there was certainly a real instability in the car, and it just...
and he got him so quickly as well.
Yeah, the thing just wobbled and lurched, so the team are having a look under there at the moment. Not a lot of urgency, though, and I think Wyn's got his helmet off, so it's game, set and match for Holden race team. And Larry Perkins is also coming to the pits. Gee, you wouldn't want to be in a Holden today. So Peter Brock...
not only that, you've got John Bowe headed for the pits as well, so the order at this stage is still Nissan 1-2 with Tony Longhurst back in 3rd, and I would think that Glenn Seton and the Peter Jackson Sierra would be 4th, and probably Alan Jones up into 5th spot.
And Brock's also decided to give the game away in the 05 car. It's astonishing because the strength of the Holden has always been unbelievable reliability, and suddenly this weekend, for no apparent reason, these cars are giving trouble. I think Larry's stop was merely for tyres, so the number 11 MOBIL car continues. What a drama. We've got two dead Shell cars, and both the MOBIL cars have had strife. The Holden racing team Commodores had strife. And you guessed it, it's still Nissan up front. But they certainly haven't had it their own way this weekend at all. Mark Oastler down in the pits again with Wyn Percy. What was the problem?
Wyn Percy, what was the problem there?
Well, about 3 laps ago, I flipped a fan belt or the generator light came on. I assumed the engine's cooked. I watched the water temperature go up. Coming on to the straight here, I went over my own water, so I nearly lost the car. So I'm afraid the engine's finished, probably due to an alternator belt for all I know.
Were you happy with the performance of the car up till then? It looked to be going very strongly in 3rd place.
Yeah, I guess the Nissans were going to be the problem, and the BM, and that wasn't far out. But yeah, I was enjoying it. I think I was giving the Nissan a pretty hard time, in fact, a very hard time. I think now we might see him close on the Nissans a little bit.
Bad luck, Wyn. Better luck next time. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Mark. Glenn Seton, who hasn't been too shy of a run on the rostrum or two this season, in the number 30 Peter Jackson Sierra, soldiers on, running back in 4th spot. He's got absolute We'll be calling them bedrock specials, but he's got the hardest possible compound tyre on today to go the distance without a pit stop. Two Nissans just gliding in front at this stage, and they have opened up quite a gap over Tony Longhurst, who hasn't really been able to capitalise at all in the last few laps. No, it's drifted out completely.
I'll get a gap, but it's not within attacking distance, so don't get excited. I think the interest here will be whether or not Jim can get past his teammate Mark Skaife. The points in the championship would suggest that there's no real need to do that. Look at Glenn Seton working hard at the wheel there with the rear of the car just locking up a little. There's John Bower still just lurking around at snail's pace with the number 18 car. There may well be some points in doing that because points are paid right back to 10th place, and I don't know that there'd be 10 runners out there at the moment.
I rather doubt it. There's Colin Bond, the Caltex CXT Sierra.
I was going to say that with Jim leading the championship with 40 points and Skaife second with 30, there may not be any real urgency on Jim's part to have to do a desperate. And let's face it, at the moment, Mark's got the tiger by the tail, and Richo may not be able to get past in any case. Certainly a terrific drive from both the Nissan drivers, and once again, the Gibson Motorsport show have done their homework.
They certainly have. Their only problems came in practice yesterday, trying to get around an understeer problem, which they obviously have today. They're both cars running beautifully, nose to tail, Skaife leading them. The rest of the field have been humbled somewhat. Only Tony Longhurst continues to offer any real opposition, and he will have to pick his pace up dramatically in the concluding stages of the race.
Well, he's 12.9 seconds behind the Nissans, so they're going to have to really drop their pace dramatically for anything to happen there.
We take our Nissan race cam. Jimmy Richards still following Mark Skaife. No team orders, Jim?
No team orders.
He's doing well, the young lad. He made a brilliant start.
He made a great start. I got boxed in behind Dick and Wynn, and of course I couldn't go anywhere, but Mark went right on the outside, which is great stuff.
No understeer problems as such today?
Oh, mate. Yes, if you push it real hard, but we're driving it so that it doesn't have any.
Well, I think the both of you got about a 12-second break on Tony Longhurst, and the rest of them, I think, have probably parked.
Well, you know, you can't afford to let up because, like, our cars aren't doing it easy around here, I can tell you, and it's bloody hot.
Yeah.
And Tony, at any time, can sort of keep attacking, where we're sort of getting a bit slower.
Tommy, the next round is a fortnight from today at Lakeside, and I guess, like everyone else, you've heard the rumours that Tony's been very quick around there with the BMW. Is that a track that you think you're going to have some difficulty with the VMs?
For sure. We know he's quicker than us around there, so it'll be very, very interesting.
What other circuits, Jim, for our viewers, do you think the Nissan GTR is going to feel the pinch?
I think all the circuits from now on it's going to, because it's a very, very heavy car. It's hard on tyres, hard on brakes, and you just can't get away from that. It's heavy, it's hard on things.
Okay, we'll let you go back to racing again. Thanks for the chat, Jim.
Thanks, mate.
Jimmy Richards taking time out to talk to us about how the Nissan is faring. I guess people unfairly have suggested they're doing it so easily this season, but the Sierra said certainly Johnson was able to pick up the margin at Wanneroo this weekend. As luck would have it, he's detonated an engine. When Percy's gone through, I think his second engine for the weekend. So it all comes down to this little, oh, not to Alan Jones so much, because he's starting to close now on Glenn Seton in the Peter Jackson Sierra. Seton at this stage in the event running in fourth, and Jonesy trying to split all of those is number 20, Alan Jones. Once again just zips past the ailing number 18 car. Alan Jones, of course, well known to so many motorsport followers because of his World Championship Formula One victory. Also a pretty handy commentator and a good bloke as well. Jonesy heading up the top of the hill now. It's been a pretty lonely old race for Alan Jones though, starting down towards the back of the field. It's only now where he's starting to haul in our fourth place Glenn Seton. Does any sense of urgency really arise? Tony Longhurst still doing his best. So it looks like being Nissan 1-2 and the BMWs, who knows, maybe 3 and 4. But Glenn Seton is carrying on quite nicely. Car running solidly out there in fourth spot. Lonely race also for Seton this afternoon. Larry Perkins, car number 11. Larry started dead last in the field today. Gee, it's been a long time since I can recall Perkins' last qualifier in the pack. Keep in mind there were only 11 starters.
Yeah, it's pretty unusual, but boy, they've had a lot of problems with these two cars, 5 and 11, trying to get them to work satisfactorily. And the Holden Racing Team car that's looked after by Wally Story has certainly had an edge, it would seem, in the handling department in this last 3 race meetings. Looks to me like Alan Jones is going to be quite a threat to Glenn Seton before we get to the end of this competition, which is not very far away. The boys have now completed 40 laps, expected to run about 44. And the Nissan's well cleared now of Tony Longhurst. Gap around about 14 seconds. Hasn't changed too much in the last 5 minutes or so, but would seem to be pretty safe. The only thing to be decided is whether or not it's car 1 that wins or car 2 that wins. And so far, Mark Skaife's led every lap. And this would be Mark's potentially first win in an Australian Touring Car Championship. We've seen him up the front a couple of times. He ran very strongly at Winton last year and was in very good position for a podium finish, and came together, I think, with Alan Jones. We've seen his great performances in the opening 2 rounds of the championship this year.
Here they come down the back straight, the long downhill run to Kolb Corner, the right-hander. And Mark Skaife, car number 2, Richards in 1, still holding that 12 to 14 second advantage over Tony Longhurst. And you really get the impression that Longhurst has given it his best shot today, and perhaps it might be Skaife who can come up with a win here today at Wanneroo Park.
Did you notice the way that Jim was just moving into clean air on occasions there, just to make sure that he could keep temperatures in check? It doesn't take too long sitting behind another car like this, and we've just seen the last lap board shown for temperatures to squeak up, and the last thing you need is any drama. So Mark Skaife now mere seconds away from what looks like his first win in an Australian Touring Car Championship, and that'd be fabulous for the young bloke from the New South Wales Central Coast. Worked very, very hard throughout his motor racing career, fast and aggressive, a good car sorter, and all the hard work could bear some fruit for him this afternoon in about another 30 seconds, in fact.
So if he can hold out the team leader, Jimmy Richards. Heard Jim say earlier during a race cam chat, there certainly aren't any team orders as to who runs first and second. They race for it. And Jim was thinking about maybe a run down the inside. But the bottom turn coming up, last turn now as they come out, headed towards the checkered flag, and chalk up another 1-2 to Nissan. This time it's Mark Skaife who takes the victory. Second place will go to Jimmy Richards, and back about 12 or 14 seconds behind them, Tony Longhurst in the Benson and Hedges BMW will be next in to pick up 3rd place. That's exactly what happens. 4th will go to Glenn Seton in the Peter Jackson Ford Sierra, and 5th to Alan Jones in the number 20 B&H car. Let's check those out for you on our race score. As they circulate around, our Shell race score: Skaife the winner, well done Mark. Jim Richards a 1-2 for Nissan, Longhurst 3rd, Seton 4th, Alan Jones 5th. Back for the presentation in just a moment.
What a tight competition once again for this 3rd round of the Shell Series from Wanneroo Park. A slightly different result, but a much tighter race. First of all, to 3rd place, and Tony Longhurst, you've worked very hard to get into this position. You've threatened to do it a couple of times. That little BM's working well.
Yeah, we had a good combination today with the Yokohama tyres, and the car was set up. It's a nice sweeping circuit, but geez, we cop a mauling when we get on those straights. Like,
we saw it.
I was 5 seconds, not 5, I'd say 5 tenths quicker than win through the windy sections, but on the straight they just leave us for dead.
All right, well, we'll look forward to seeing you perform in the coming races on those shorter tracks. To 2nd place, and Jimmy Richards, he got you by a couple of car lengths, but it was a great drive.
Oh, listen, Mark's driving as good as anybody out there, and you know, he got the start, and I wasn't about to do anything silly. No team orders, he won fair and square. Good stuff.
Well, that's great. It was a great performance again from the Nissan team. You've done your homework, and things still look good for you in the championship.
Yes, it wasn't that good in practice, but we thought we had a good race package, and yeah, we're still gathering some points, so it's good.
Well done, Richo.
Thank you.
And the winner, the first time he's won an Australian Touring Car Championship round. Fabulous drive, Mark. Everybody was very pleased for you. You must be thrilled.
Thanks, Crombo. Yeah, it was very good. I'd just like to thank Nissan for their efforts because the car doesn't suit the circuit overly well, and the boys worked very, very hard through the week to make it a good package, and the car was fantastic.
What was going through your mind? I know it's an old cliche question, but you must have thought, can I get this thing? Can I actually get up and win a round of the Touring Car Championship?
Yeah, I suppose, you know, the first 2 rounds, our obligation between Jim and I is to do the best for Nissan, and again, that's what we've tried to do today. Off the start, they've got a great start, and Jimmy was sort of boxed in, so it was just the advantage of this run.
Well, the coming tracks are going to be curious, to say the least, for the Nissan team, because we know you've tested in a few spots, and you're not that happy with the balance of the car on this tight stuff. This bloke over here in yellow is going to give you a bad time.
I think for sure, and I think Win Person, the Commodore, again showed today how competitive he is. So it's going to be very tight racing. It'll be fantastic.
Indeed. To make the presentation, Tom Smith from the Shell Company of Australia, Mark Skaife, the winner of this third round, as I say, and a tremendous effort on everybody's part.
Let's take a look at the Shell ATCC points table. Jimmy Richards, a perfect scoreline, almost 55 points, leads the series from teammate Mark Skaife on 50. Keeping in mind they've run 1-2 in all 3 rounds. Tony Longhurst runs third on 24 points. Glenn Seton, the Peter Jackson Sierra on 22 points. And rounding out the 5, Dickie Johnson, car number 17 on 18 points. So, from Wanneroo Park in Western Australia, can any team come up with a combination to beat the Nissans in the remaining rounds of the championship? Everyone seems to think Tony Longhurst and Alan Jones can do just that at Lakeside Raceway in a fortnight's time. On behalf of the TVW7 crew in Western Australia, we hope you've enjoyed our telecast of Wanneroo Park this afternoon, and we look forward to your company when we next go motor racing 7 days from today at Amaroo Park Raceway in Sydney. Bye until then.